Hello viewers, you're welcome back to Politics with Kale, and tonight we're discussing the secret war going on in Nigeria, the one you don't hear about. You hear about Shekau and Boko Haram in northeast Nigeria, but what you don't get to hear about if you're living outside Nigeria is the quiet crisis going on in north-central Nigeria, Plateau, Benue, and whatnot. So I've got from Abuja, Kate Palm will be joining us via Skype. She's a member of the Plateau Speaks group. They are the one that have been campaigning about trying to highlight the issues concerning Plateau. And with me in the studio, I've got Ade and Dr. Palm. You're both welcome.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening.
So let me go straight to Abuja. Kate, you're there. Kate, good evening.
Hello, good evening, Kayode.
Yeah, so tell us, what does your organization stand for, Plateau Speaks?
Well, Plateau Speaks is a pressure group comprising of all youth groups in Plateau State. When it became necessary for us to come together and speak out, because we realized that a lot of these killings have been going on for 14 years and nothing has happened. Not one arrest has been made. The media has been underreporting, and over 30 villages have been wiped out. Over 100,000 hectares of land, farmlands have been destroyed. Over 22,000 people have been internally displaced, and yet it's not making the news.
Why do you think, Kate, why do you think it's not making the news? Is it that the people of Plateau are less important to the people of Northeast Nigeria, or Plateau indigenes or citizens of Plateau have not been highlighting this problem to the media?
We have been highlighting it. What the indigenes or the residents of Plateau State could perceive it to be is the conspiracy of silence.
Okay.
Because you would wonder, with the STF that has been deployed there since I think the 2010 crisis. Also, they've been there since 2004 actually.
Yeah.
And since 2001, and nothing has been done.
Okay,
the
Kate,
people have the best they can.
Okay, Kate, let me bring in Dr. Palm. You have been writing about this, you've been campaigning about this. Can you give us a background? When we say people are being killed in Plateau, who is doing the killing? I understand is a settler, non-settler, Fulani, local indigene. It's just blood. We don't get to understand it except if you're from that place. Can you give us a background?
Well, it's sad. And as Kate has said, this is something that's been going on for many years, and in fact should be at the forefront of national discourse, because the Middle Belt is a very strategic part of the country, and it is as an outshoot of these conflicts that other conflicts have developed. So for those of us from Middle Belt, particularly from Jos, we have seen these killings, we have seen the barbarity, we've seen the savagery long before it went to the northeast. Okay. In fact, Jos is considered the gateway to the northeast. From Jos, you go to Bauchi, from Bauchi you go to Gombe, and you go to Yola and all those places. Okay. So, I mean, why it hasn't been highlighted is because there's been a quiet sort of strategic conflict that has been going on.
Okay, Ade, you are from Benue State originally, and I know this crisis also touched Benue, which is part of the north central Nigeria. We call it Middle Belt Nigeria. Tell me, what's your experience like for the people of Benue?
Well, you know, we have, in Benue, we have two major tribes, the Idomas and the Thieves. And before then, we had, the old Benue State had the Igalas with us, you know, and then there were issues of domination by one tribe. The Igalas had the same complaint with the Idomas. But then they went to Kogi State and began to dominate. So we have the issue of domination in Benue State. Okay. However, I think I want to ascribe these issues to the politicians. Okay. Because I'm Idoma. I schooled in Idoma land, my last year of primary school. I did some few years in Aliede, which is a Tiv land. I have so many Tiv friends, and we don't have issues. You know, we relate very well, and that's just it.
So just think it's being fun.
Yeah, yes, I think I want to think it's all about the spoils of war.
Okay.
Yes, that's just what it is. Okay. And then you go on to the Tiv angle with the Jukums. Yeah. You know, that's a boundary issue.
Okay.
And
all right. Okay, Kate, if you're still there, Kate, let's get back to Plateau State. You guys, you've done quite a number of protests in Abuja, and how would you describe Plateau today? I was in Jos, I schooled in Jos, beautiful place. Plateau generally, the people are kind, whether you're from Jos North or Jos South, you're Birom or non-Birom. What is Plateau State like now? When was the last time, when did you visit Plateau State last?
I was in Jos 2 weeks ago to bury my cousins who were brutally killed on the way between Jos and Barkin-Ladi. They were attacked by Fulani men. And when I went to Jos, there were quite a few people because one of them is from Barkin-Ladi and the other lives in Jos. So during the funeral, you had quite a few people that came from the villages. And it was really sad to hear people because funerals have become the order of the day in Plateau State. In fact, farmlands have become burial grounds now. As I speak to you, if you remember the sporadic killings that killed the late Senator Dantong, yeah, and Senator Dantong and Yang Fulani during a mass funeral. I don't know if you you caught news. Now that site, that funeral has not been completed till today. The place is a no-go area. People cannot go there. People are living in perpetual fear. Yeah. And then the animosity is deepening because when there are attacks, you hear there's always there are blame games. The Fulani, the Hausas will say it's the Biroms are saying it's the Fulanis and all that. So that is not helping the situation.
Okay.
And unless
hold on your thoughts. Sorry to interrupt. I apologize for interrupting you. I just want to quickly bring Dr. Pam here. Now, I've heard the use of Fulani, Biroms, different tribes. But these are meant to be Nigerians. I thought if you're a Nigerian, you're meant to be a citizen of, or you should feel like an indigene. Even if you're, whether you're Fulani or you're Birom. We get this kind of arguments. Do you have any... are there any logics to this?
Well, yes. I mean, and this is the tragedy of the situation. It is not a secret that the major problem in ethnic conflict in Nigeria is this definition between indigeneship and citizenship. And it goes back to 1954 when the Native Law Authority defined indigents, as people whose genealogy can be traced to a particular geographical area. Yeah. So from that point in time, that became enshrined within our constitution. Okay. The 1999 constitution did nothing to correct it. If anything, there's a conflict between the provisions of the 1999 constitution vis-a-vis indigents and citizens. So what you find is that the right of citizenship for any Nigerian is actually only viable if that person lives in where his ethnic group becomes is dominant. So our Igala brother here will only exercise Idoma will only exercise his citizenship where the dominant group is Idoma. So the Fulanis, let me just finish. Yeah. They will not also get their citizenship rights. The Biroms, if they were to go anywhere else, will not be able to actualize their rights. So this question goes back to the Nigerian government legislature.
So it's a serious one in terms of the foundation of the country, how we define citizenship. But hold on your thought there. Let me bring in my caller here. I've got my first caller on the line. Hello, good evening, caller. Please tell me your name and where you're calling from. And straight to your question, please.
Hello, my name is Garba.
All right, go ahead, Garba.
Okay, there are two things I want to talk about. Yeah. Kayode, student protest. I just want to remind you that student protest is not a new thing. Buhari and Idiabo closed down foreign exchange for students when they came to power in the 80s. And the same thing 30 years back now. He's from my state, Kaduna State, but you see, he's continuing with the same game again. He's playing the same game. He's holding now. He's not wanting to play school. Before he took up.
Okay, before we turn this into a Buhari debate, these students are actually Rivers State students sponsored by Rivers State government, and they are protesting against the Rivers State government for not fulfilling its commitment. Let's go straight to the other question because I want a lot of people to call in.
Yeah. Okay. The other question is it regarding the Plateau problem?
Yes.
The problem, that Plateau problem is something that's common with Nigeria. Because in the whole Nigeria, I regard Nigeria as a racist country.
Okay.
Because a Yoruba cannot come to Igbo and be a governor. And an Igbo cannot go to any other state and be.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your call. I really appreciate that. Ade, we've looked at the constitution, defective system. But it's really quite painful that we cannot, the crisis in the Middle Belt is not gaining enough attention. Why do you think it's not getting enough attention, really?
It's quite unfortunate, and we have had crises all over Nigeria, like the last caller said. Nigeria is a melting point for crisis. You know, we've had the Umuleri, Aguleri, the Zangon, Kataf, Ife, Modakeke, and these are within ethnic groups. You know, it's not inter-ethnic. This is intra-ethnic. And then the issue of Plateau now, it's we have the Berums against the Hausa Fulani and other tribes against the Hausa Fulani, and it's all about the indigene settler issue.
Okay.
And that brings us back to the issue of citizenship. You know, we have the same problem. Okay, looking at the Fulanis, in Benue State, I was going to add, around the Agatu area, you have lots of killings, silent killings. You have in the Jukun Tiv border, the same thing. They are all fighting for resources. The Fulanis want to graze their cattle. And now they destroy crops, you know, and there are reprisals, killings, you know, by...
Before I take my next caller, let me quickly go to Abuja and speak with Kate. Kate, let's look at it from the other side here. The so-called settlers or the Fulani herdsmen, the claim is that they are not allowed to graze their land, and Nigeria does not have a standardized grazing route where they also have to survive. And that my understanding is that the killing is not from one side against the other, that both sides are guilty in terms of mass killings and ethnic, more or less, cleansing.
Well, when you look at their lifestyle and their culture, and you know, when it comes to issues of culture, it's a very sensitive issue. Now, these people are they're nomadic in nature, okay? And so when the dry season comes and they're down south, what do you expect the settlers to do? You know, we're not going to leave the land fallow. And this, the indigenes are predominantly farmers. This is how the nation is fed. This is how families are being fed. And so there is a tug of war. You're saying, I want your source of sustenance. That is what I want to use to feed my cattle. And you see, it's not going to work like that. And as long as the killings continue, then there cannot be a level discussion forum for peace, for the peace process to begin in the first place.
All right, thanks, Kate. Let me quickly go on social media. I've got a tweet message from one of our viewers, and she's actually complaining about why should Ugoshi Idika, you say, we have universities in Nigeria. Why sponsor almost 250 students abroad from just one state? That's huge. And I've got a text message from Nigeria. The killings in the north central of Nigeria is part of the Kanem Borno Empire, with Boko Haram systematically trying to subjugate and expand their Islamic frontier in the Middle Belt. Well, that's your view. I've got a caller on the line. Good evening, caller. Please tell me your name and where you're calling from, and straight to the point, please.
Hello there, my name is Thomas.
All right, where are you calling from, Thomas?
I'm calling from Brighton.
All right, go ahead, please.
Yeah, basically the issue of Plateau, like I also, well, I school in University of Jos, same time as you.
Okay.
Same time actually. Basically, I think the first point is the point where other killings have been happening in the far north.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of hears about it. And your question was how come the killings in Plateau have kind of gone on the ground and no one kind of hears about it. I think maybe the Plateau individuals themselves have not actually brought this to the forefront. You know, like the Chibok girls thing, where almost everybody was in tune with it.
Yeah.
There was this mass protest that went to Abuja and everywhere. But for some reason, the Plateau individuals themselves have not really highlighted this problem.
Okay. All right, thank you so much for that contribution, and that goes to you, Dr. Pam. Plateau indigens. In Plateau, we have lots of, there was a time Plateau State, a combination of Plateau and Benue literally controlled top generals in the Nigerian army. If you go to Rayfield, you have Gowons, the Gowons of this world, and Joseph Garba, if I'm Garba, if I'm correct. And why there's so much silence from that angle?
Well, if you look at it, the era that you have just mentioned was the era of the 70s and perhaps the 80s. During that time, there wasn't a problem. These killings and conflict actually took off from around 1994 when Malam Mato was made chairman of Jos North.
Yeah.
So there was a big conflict around that time. And then things sort of quietened down until 2001. But if you think about it, Plateau is a state that is the 12th largest in the country in terms of geographical area, but it's the 26th sort of most populated state out of the number of ethnic groups, at least 50. So it's not large compared to other tribes, other groups. And so the Plateau voice is submerged in a lot of other things that, and so it is not heard. And apart from that, our people are only beginning to become educated and acquire prosperity at at a later stage than the rest of the country. So we fight for visibility, and that's the problem.
All right, viewers, remember. If you want to send text message, for those who have been trying to call into the studio, I can see your message that you can't reach us, but you can also send a text message. The number is right there on the screen. Let me ask from someone who is from the Southwest, and there is such a powerful media in the Southwest of the country. The media, the press is being used. What is happening in North Central, especially in the Middle Belt? Why can't people come together? I know there used to be PRTV, there are great materials coming out of maybe Plateau State in terms of the media. What's happening? Okay,
good point you mentioned PRTV. In fact, the first color television station in Nigeria was built in Jos. That was NTA Jos. The National Film School is based in Jos. A lot of the programs that have emerged nationally, Cockrell Dawn, for instance, they've all come from Jos. A lot of the top Nigerian theatre artists trained in Jos. So, the thing is that for some reason, this doesn't gain traction. Now, it's not for nothing that you've called this the quiet war or the silent killings, because it is a war of attrition. So it is small numbers of people getting killed. It is not a big bang. Now, if you look at the rest of the world right now, think about any crisis you like, from the Middle East to Africa. You're hearing tens of thousands of people being killed in the most savage way. And so if we, for instance, in Plateau, it's the killings as of 2012 were 4,000, over a protracted period.
Okay. Let me quickly go back to Abuja, and please don't call that line you're calling. I've seen calls from Nigeria. It's a text message. The studio lines will be on the screen. But let's quickly go back to Kate. Kate, can you tell me the effect of this crisis on women and children?
Oh, gosh, it's terrible. You know that we have people, I've just gotten a more recent count, and we're looking at over 50,000 people. And some of these IDP camps are schools. So what it means is that the children who should have been in school from the displaced villages are in camps, and the children who need to go to school in those camps cannot go to school because of that. And then women are being raped. Some of them are raped and killed. Some of them are raped and they just go missing and we can't find them. Not too different from what happened to the Chibok girls. And recently, I came across a woman who escaped being raped with a big wound to her head. She was bleeding, and she said the young Fulani boy couldn't have been more than 16. Wow. And he was instructing her, he beat her up and was instructing her to strip. Now, can you imagine that the trauma that these women will be living with? I know generally all over the world, the marks of the failings of society are born on the bodies of women. There's so many women that are young widows. In my cousin's instance, there are 3 generations of widows. His mother is a widow, his elder sister is a widow, and his wife is now a widow with young children. So how are these people going to sustain their livelihood without support, without proper care given to them? Okay,
thanks, Kate. Let's go to next caller. Hello, good evening, caller. Please tell me your name, where you're calling from, and straight to the point.
Good evening. This is Julius calling from Bliss.
All right, go ahead. From where, please?
From Bliss.
From Bliss. Okay, go ahead. You're welcome.
My first question to you is to your program, because you said this program will be closing up. Is it going to be replaced, or are you going to take another format? Because we are going to miss this program. This is closed entirely.
Well, our last show is on the 29th of October. We're so sorry. You know, we only wanted this program for a few weeks, but we've stayed on for 2.5 years, and that's thanks to Ben TV. But by 29th of October will be our last show.
So there's not going to be any other thing like politics with KO?
No, not not at the not at the moment actually. But we're still grateful that Ben TV gave us this platform. But you know, sometimes even good things would have to come to an end. Yeah, thanks so much for that. Anyway,
really, trying this program, you have given us more than we expected. Anyway,
thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, yeah. So let's in Benue State, and I know some parts of Niger State. Can't we link these things to bad governance? That the only reason why these crises are going on in North Central, really, and all across Nigeria is as a result of
Absolutely, that was what I mentioned earlier. You know, it's all about the spoils of war. The politicians are behind all this. And, you know, due to misgovernance, no jobs for the youth. So they are willing tools. They are thugs. They are ready and willing to kill. Yeah. Okay. You know, and like Kate said, women and children are always the victim. And people should understand the convention that protects women and children in crises such as this. Wow. You know, schools are disrupted, diseases everywhere, you know, lack of food, and so many other, negative issues.
When I was having a conversation with Dr. Pam, you hinted that you have Fulani blood in you, if I got you right. Is there a conflict there? Because this is described as a Fulani settler Birom crisis. Is it deeper than that?
Well, I think it's extremely tragic in the sense that we talk about these communities as though they are mutually exclusive. They're not. And I can think back to even the days of my grandfather, where there were Fulani settlers. And when we say settlers, the Fulanis will tell you that some of them settled in Vom as far back as the
mining era.
Yeah, no, we're talking about the 16th century. Yeah. So I think this is the problem about talking about indigenes and settlers. Yeah. Everybody migrated to some degree at some point, and it is where you draw the line. So the Fulanis and the Biroms, and in fact the other ethnic groups in Jos, like the Anaguta and the Afizere and the Jarawa, they've all lived in peace. Now, the problem is that our political context is such that there is savage rivalry and competition for resources. Yeah. And so what happens is that the construct then moves towards who is going to get these resources and to whose maximum benefit and to the exclusion of who else. So we need to move away from that. I have to say also that my father, who was one of the first army officers in the country, in fact, one of the first adjutant generals, married a woman from Kano, whose mother was Fulani. Yeah. They lived peacefully, And although my father was shot and killed in the '66 coup, my mother went on to even become a very big member of the Birom community, whereas she herself was not Birom. But so the point I want to make is this, that in their memory, we established a foundation called the James and Elizabeth Palm Foundation, which has dedicated in part itself to looking into this issue and promoting peace. We have been able to get both communities to sit down and talk. And, you know, they've come up, although we talk about Birom killings, I have to be honest, for balance, the fact is that the Fulanis, and sadly you don't have anybody here, not for lack of trying, but you don't have anybody here who can give us their own angle. But the fact is that from the paperwork I have, they can also give us a lot of claims as to who's been killed and in what way. So the body count really, although it is tragic and we mourn those we've lost, we need to go to the root of it and to solve it. Okay,
I've got a caller on the line, and let me also say, good you mentioned that we did try to get members of the Fulani community in. 2 people pulled out that minute. They had other engagements, but we're always ready. We're still here for another 1 month to deal with that. Let's have the next caller. Good evening, caller. Please tell me your name and where you're calling from.
Good evening, Kayode.
All right, good evening, Shooks.
Calling from London.
All right, go ahead.
Kayode, you see, sometimes when people say their mind, they sound, maybe you will say, I'm trying to bring in ethnicity into this. But Nigeria, I think it is time our elders, more said the elders in the north, should come out and strategize for the welfare of their people and for the way things will work in the north. You see, Benue, and I'm not from Jos, I'm not from Benue, but I served, when I was doing my NYC, I was opportunity to mingle with people from there. They are not regarded as the North, as the Hausa. So they are a kind of inferior to the main Fulani. And I still don't understand why a cattle rearer is still allowed in Nigeria to carry AK-47. You could remember as of last year, during the time of Suswan, there was major crisis that you'll be hearing that helicopter will be landed in the in the farmland, and nobody will give account of the helicopter. No one knows who is the owner of the helicopter, and you'll be hearing some certain things, and the northern elders will keep quiet, only interested in the oil wells from the east or from the south.
Okay, thank you, Chooks. Thank you so much for that. And Chooks made a very important point that day, that why are people allowed to carry and go about with arms? The argument will be it's part of the tradition. If you're grazing and you're grazing along the forest and what have you, you should be armed.
No, Fulani is used to, they are known to move around with daggers and maybe bows and arrows. But you know, because of this crisis, and it's quite amazing because I think, I don't know if it's political, kind of it is, because you are baffled at the number of people. Sometimes when they raid, you see hundreds of people. Where do they come from? Fulani is moving pockets, and they don't abandon their wives.
So you think there could also be another...
Of course, there's proliferation of arms. You know, arms from all sources across the borders. Our borders are not secure.
If I can come in here, I think, first of all, unfortunately, we are going around in circles in this conflict. There have been countless commissions of inquiry. We've had the Fibrissima Commission. We've had the Nikitobi report. We've had the Ajibola report. We have subsequently had the House of Reps, and you know, so countless. And as of this point in time, only recently, current governor of Plateau State has instituted a 14-man committee. So what happens is that these groups and committees produce reports. The reports gather dust on the shelves, and they're never implemented. And then in response to any new conflict, another committee is set up. But we have rehashed the whole thing. One of the recommendations of one of the commissions is this business of carrying arms. Now, historically, if you look at the Fulani group, they are all across West Africa. And they have a certain tradition, and that is what has sustained them and maintained them, that if you attack one of them, you've attacked all of them. So if there is a problem with one group, they will simply
Mobilize.
You know, mobilize from other
yeah.
places, and you see people,
Okay.
you know, and they have got cattle which gives them, you know, sufficient wealth.
Well, you know, there are
Okay,
questions of
before
mercenaries
I
here,
got
but,
a caller on the line. Kate, you're still there, and I'm going to come back to you in Abuja. Good evening, caller.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Kayode.
Good evening. Tell me your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Dominic.
All right, go ahead, Dominic.
Yeah, let us not hide or begin to be afraid of society people in Nigeria. We are all human beings.
Yes.
Because if we hide away from the truth, the unseen thing will engulf every one of us. May God not let it be so.
Amen.
To be sincere, the Fulanis and the federal government are the cause of the problem we have in that Nigeria. Okay. That is the position of the whole thing. I will give you one example.
Give me one, please.
In Edo State, where I come from, all the way from north, as at about 30 years ago, these people will migrate down to our farm and begin to destroy crop and all those things. We try to relate with them amicably and say, how do we settle you people and put your cattle or whatever in a normal condition? They said no, they don't want it. Instead, when they come to our farm, they start fighting. That's what they do. They have always been doing that. But I have a solution to Nigeria.
Okay.
What I want them to do is to go to far north, let Nigeria, federal government, open a space. All they should be doing now, as at now, be using NYC people under it. After 3 years, send these people down to that place. Then these people will be grazing, living in that condition.
Okay.
We are not Nigerians. We have to
grazing place.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Dominic. Let me go straight to Abuja so I can move the conversation forward. Kate, if you're still there, can you tell me what do you think is the way forward?
On the short term, I think that, like we've all said, all the youths are staying. Something needs to be done now. The government has to make a visible statement. As I speak to you now, you cannot hear, the president has not said anything on this matter. And it's interesting to note that he is off that stock. One would expect that he would be able to say something to at least curtail this. And in change management, when you want quick change, you want something visible, something that will leave an impression in people's minds. Now we have command centers that are based in Jos, when the crisis areas are in the hinterland, are in Barkin-Ladi, in Riom, and the Bokos axis. Something has to, they need to move quickly. And then they have to improve relations between the STF and the local people. The
when you say STF, who are the STF?
The STF is
Special Task Force. Okay.
That has to the police, the military, and all the security apparel. And as I speak to you now, currently, the people don't trust them because some of the killings, they believe some of the killings were perpetrated by them. Okay. So there has to be that trust building process. There has to be, these people need to be resettled back into the communities from which they were displaced.
All right, Kate, thanks for that. Just hold on there in Abuja. Let me read this text message. Hello, this is a message to both guests. Ethnicity, tribe, and ancestral rights are sacred to people, but there should be citizens' rights which should accommodate ethnic and tribal status. This issue is similar to the tensions between Roma people and the settled. You're familiar with the Roma crisis, the gypsies in the UK, and saying that there should be some sort of, look, we can say these things as we like, you know, society is about maximizing whatever you have for your benefit, and these grazers or some of these aggressors, they also have a legitimate case that they don't. I don't think Nigeria has got a grazing pathway, or we've ever made a provision for.
We have, and that was done in 1964. Okay. There are grazing stock and routes. So, you know, this is not a new problem. It's been going on for years, and there were solutions previously which we need to look at. It's a lack of political will. Yeah. I think it's a lack of individual will. Yeah. We get carried away with the barbarity of what is going on, and we forget the root cause. So let me just go to solutions. So let's not keep.
Go ahead,
I'll go back to the foundation report, because they asked the Birom community and the Fulani community exactly what they felt would be proposals for peace. Yeah. And what the Birom said was return the old way of the Fulani settling on the land, where they had agreements with the indigents. So the Hardo, who is the Fulani head, would now approach on behalf of his Fulani community person, will approach the Birom headman, and they would discuss and agree. They would agree, and remember also that actually cattle dung helps in fertilizing the land. Yes. So it's a kind of mutual benefit. It's of mutual benefit. It's not always destruction of land. And you know, there were lands that were left fallow. So there was a system which the Birom said, let us go back to that. Now, the areas where Fulani congregate, we have to look at it. We have huge expanses of land. Is there a way we can agree to where some people will settle? And you know, you know, so that's
how about the Fulani? Did the Fulanis make any demand?
Yes, the Fulanis also.
Okay, while you're looking for that,
I'll give you the proposals for peace. They said, they said compensation for cattle lost. They want that. Indigenship. Let the federal government and national legislature settle this question of indigenship versus citizenship. Then creation of grazing reserves and cattle routes where they do not exist, and the maintenance of existing ones.
This looks like they have there's an understanding, there's a solution.
Let me finish. Establishment of a commission to address problems associated with farmer and grazer conflicts, resettlement of internally displaced herdsmen, revamping of nomadic schools, employment of Fulani people by the state government, addressing pending issues. So what I'm doing here is really trying to catalyze an agreement, because we can talk all the grammar about this, that, and the other. The point is that the communities need to come together. Federal government has a role in terms of creating the atmosphere for it. But at the end of the day, the hard discussions have to be had on the ground.
Okay, I've got another caller on the line. Good evening, caller. Please, where are you calling from and what's your name?
My name is Livingstone.
Sorry, I can hardly hear you.
My name is Livingstone.
Yeah, where are you calling from, Livingstone?
Dublin.
All right, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I want to say that one of the major issues why this thing has come this far is because of bad governance. With example of before the Zango Kataf issue, the issue of this crisis has been on the low. But the Zango Kataf issue, where Zamani Leport was the only person that was indicted and jailed. It's not Zamani Leport. Maybe Babangida or Abacha. And so, if the government was, I think it was a misgovernance based on the fact that it was biased. They were biased against certain people. That was why one man was jailed. So, that was why one man was jailed. And
okay, I have to let you go. Sorry, because we're running out of time. Let me quickly go to Abuja, and so let's get a final word from Kate. Quickly, please.
Okay, what I would say is, I think that at this point, what Plateau Speaks will want is for the whole world to lend their voices to this cause, to support us. And we would want our government, we want the United Nations to speak, because this is a violation of fundamental human right to live. And I would also encourage people to go to the page. We have a page on Facebook, Plateau Speaks, and you will see some of these images for yourself, and you will see the story.
All right, thank you so much, Kate, for joining us all the way from Abuja. Thank you. And you have anything, your final word?
Well, I wish to say all these crises around Nigeria are affecting our democracy, you know, because we've been talking about democracy, but how can this fester in the midst of crisis here and there?
And Doctor?
All I want to say is let our people, Biroms, Fulanis, all the other ethnic groups all around the country sit together and discuss their problems.
Thank you so much, guys, for coming in here, and it's good to have you. Viewers, we've come to the end of today's program. We'll definitely see you next Thursday. And let me say this, we want peace in Nigeria. And President Buhari, you actually need to speak about this crisis in central Nigeria. May peace return to Nigeria. Good night, and God bless. The confusion that we have in Lagos is also the political situation. And on Politics with KO, what we try and do is to go beyond the confusion and get something really meaningful. Out of the confusion that we have in Lagos is also the political situation. And on Politics with